big marketing skills. Now, why? Obviously, I talk about marketing. I'm a marketer. I've been leading marketing teams in my own marketing company for decades, and leading marketing for all kinds of different companies, and running marketing services for all kinds of different firms and agencies, providing goods and services, products of all types, in all kinds of industries, verticals and horizontals, you name it. One niche after the other, one broad thing after the other. There's no shortage of the different kinds of things I have marketed over the years, and that my agency has marketed over the years. So why talk about this now? Well, I think that people who get into marketing and want to rise to high levels of marketing positions should keep in mind a number of things. The skills you need when you start in marketing, by the way, this is of course similar to many other trades and professions. The skills you need at the beginning of your marketing journey are very different than those you need as you progress. And by the time you get to a high level, they're almost completely different. Now, granted, when you're at a high level, you're expected to have a comprehension of the skills you previously had to learn and master, or at least have a good working ability with. But as you go through the years of putting in the hard work, very often you might even lose some of those skills or just not be quite as adept at them, because they're the kind of things you need to practice regularly in order to stay sharp in that capacity. However, what's interesting about the field of marketing, and it is a little bit different from other fields, certain other fields, is that in marketing, there are almost no guarantees. It's not like being a doctor or a lawyer or even an engineer, where as you progress, you have certifications or licenses that legally enable you to do certain things. Anyone can be a marketer, and anyone can be great at it one moment and terrible at it the next. And if they don't see the big picture, they might think that any given snapshot of their performance is the be-all and end-all of their marketing potential and talent. When, of course, if you put in the long years of marketing, as many people do, actually, it's really the sum of a person's overall achievements and foibles or fails that shows you what they were actually able to do. But there's no real school, if you will, for that. I mean, sure, you can get a marketing degree in college, but that isn't like a license to be a doctor, for example, or a lawyer, right? It isn't like a professional skill like an engineer, which most people simply can't do because they don't math good, right? Or they don't science well, or they don't know how to program or build things, whatever it is that they need as engineers. In marketing, it really is all about, it's a kind of thankless, or mostly thankless, eat what you kill kind of job. It's all about performance. It's all about data and results. And when you slip up, even for a second, you are fortunate if you don't get tossed by the wayside very quickly and replaced by somebody else who is perceived to have a better skill or ability at that particular work than you might in that particular moment. And it may be that you're actually far, far better than the person that you are working for or being replaced by, etc., right? I have done a work for many clients where I have vastly far more experience in all the related fields of the business, from the top to the bottom, than the highest ranking member of the company, right? Let alone my own managers or whatever, I was reporting to as a service provider or whatever, or as even an employee. That happens to a lot of people. It's not even unusual. The thing to do about that, if you're not, if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of power or fame, or you're not fully connected to a, network of people that kind of give you cover and will help you out whenever times may get a little bit difficult. In other words, if you're like most people, just on your own in the big wide world, and you maybe don't even have any family that can really help you out. This happens a lot too. Then, first of all, you probably already know how to put your ego to the side and focus on what matters. But you'll find so often that people who are very entitled and, oddly enough, are in privileged positions because of their status in life from their birth, or what they were granted through life because of their parents or anything else like that, or their connections, which may make their positions unearned or unqualified or unvetted. They will have a big ego, and they will use that to shore up their fragility and their vulnerability because of fear. If they fear working with somebody who might usurp them because their talents are better than theirs, right? There's a lot of different reasons why, as a marketer, you need to think beyond that and think, okay, all that really matters is performance and results, and showing that the work being done has a positive impact, and even a significant positive impact, if that can be achieved. Why? Because ultimately that's kind of what companies really care about for the most part, right? And not that that's a bad thing. In fact, they have to look out for their bottom line, right? The C-suite has a fiduciary responsibility to decisions, and that they're bringing returns, because that's why those shareholders invest in those companies. So don't think that it's done out of hatred or spite or anything else, that people in lower positions are not perceived to be as critical to the organization as people in higher positions, because the people in higher positions very often have a lot of pressure on them. It's quite normal to have a lot of pressure when you're in the C-suite, far more than people in certain lower positions, although the pressure that's on the people in the lower positions is just as real and feels to them just as heavy and difficult, because in many ways it is. In fact, in many ways it's more difficult, right? It's sure, if you're in the C-suite, you do have a lot of pressure to make sure that you have enough, money to run your firm, or that you're doing all the right policies, or that growth is happening as expected, etc., etc. But people in the lower rungs also feel pressure, especially if they're not paid enough to do their work. So they can barely eke out a living. They don't have enough money to save. In some cases, they're literally going into debt by working for firms, but they have no choice, because if they had no job, they go into even worse debt. So people on all the rungs of the totem pole are in a difficult position when you are working in a debt-ridden society, And you are working in a society in which very often the people at the top are living quite large, and there is an unequal distribution of resources among the different tiers. Now, many companies don't have that, where there's such a massive disparity between the top and the bottom. In fact, a lot of startups, some that I work with presently, have exactly the opposite, where the people at the top tier are doing everything they possibly can to make the firm succeed, even at their own expense, right? Even at their own personal cost or quality of life. And they sacrifice whatever they can to make sure that everybody else is taken care of. And I've done that many times in my career, and even to this day work with companies like that, because they care more about the overall team being able to move forward and the overall objectives of the company being able to move forward than about necessarily being the people enriching themselves off of the back of the company that they work for. So that's one big thing in marketing, is to not let the ego get into your frame of mind, so that you don't end up hurting yourself or others around you by way of that ego. Nevertheless, there are people who swear by it and say, well, without this ego, I never would have risen to the top. Okay, that's one way to look at it, but it's not necessarily the most efficacious way, shall we say, and it can lead to a lot of damage. And that's why I find that in marketing, it's best to put your ego to the side, focus on the performance and the results, and do that continually, just like clockwork. Don't stop. Once you start, just don't stop. Keep delivering the results. Keep improving things a little bit every day, and over time, things will be a lot bigger and a lot better for your marketing, performance and results, etc. Now, another big thing to think about as marketing people is team leadership, right? Team leadership and communications and transparency and being an overall better leader takes many skills, right? It takes many qualities, but those are all things about being a leader that matter more when you're at the top than when, let's say, you're at the lower rungs, and you might even be the person who's bringing in most of the revenue. I've done work where I was, not even considered a manager in the company where I worked in, even though I was clearly way more qualified than all of my managers and the directors and the VPs and everybody practically in the company. Had vastly more experience than people in that, and I was bringing in most of the revenue for the company single-handedly, compared to like teams of dozens of others who were losing money overall, and they were spending far more money than I was spending, and I was spending a tiny amount of money every month and bringing in massive returns, 10 to 1 easily, even more, 20 to 1, 30 to 1 returns on the investments. You give me $1, I'll bring you 30. Now, in that situation, right, team leadership and clarity and everything else is all very important, and will keep you in good company as long as the team around you and your managers around you and everybody else around you comprehends what you're doing. But even if they do comprehend, even if you make it as clear as you possibly can, and some of them will still tell you, I don't get it, you can still be canned, because somebody doesn't like you for some reason. Some manager is tired of not comprehending what you do, or just has some political reason to not want you to be there. Usually they fear that you're going to outpace them in the company and outrank them soon, like be promoted above them, and they'll stay in their place, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a million reasons why people fear the person at the lower rungs of the totem pole who has great talents and skills, and the managers above them will do everything they can to keep that person down and even toss them out as soon as they can. And I've seen this happen time and again. I mean, it's even happened to me as a service provider. It's even happened to me as an employee. I have, no shortage of it. It hasn't happened often, but it has happened to me, once or twice, where clearly, the people who were in the company structure considered above me feared what I was doing and didn't understand why I was bringing in such massive returns, and they immediately chose to, get rid of me after, some time. But they immediately decided, once they made the decision, it was immediate that they got rid of me, because they basically, feared being usurped by somebody who clearly had more talents and skills than them. And that's, it happens, and there's really nothing you can do about it as a marketer. I mean, I know in some places, probably California or whatever, you could probably, sue for wrongfully being fired or whatever. But in most places on Earth, that's not really a thing. People are not obligated to keep you on their staff for any reason. They can just fire you for practically any reason. So even if they fired you for this, for reason X, they can just say it was reason Y, which is covered by, the law, and therefore you're out. And good luck proving that you were really being fired for reason X, which wasn't covered, right? So you got to keep in mind as a marketer, you have to know when to be transparent, which is pretty much always, and when to keep your cards close to your vest in terms of if the company you're working for does not like the way you operate, even if you're being fully transparent and that's what they pretend to want as a culture, don't give up all your magic juice and tell them exactly how you do all the great things you do, like down to the nitty-gritty details, if you know that they're just going to steal that from you and then fire you, right? But in most cases, if you do share with them, be transparent and show them how you do it, and you should be rewarded for that if it works. Of course, you do this by testing, by showing them one thing at a time, as opposed to releasing it all out there at once. Because, again, many people who are in marketing have many skills that they learn along the way, and some are, better at some than others, and some people have more skills than others, but pretty much everyone has multiple skills, especially as you're learning to be an expert in any of them, right? So keep that in mind, whether you're on the bottom of the ladder or whether you're on the top of the ladder. Don't look down at people and fear their abilities and talents. Instead of that, listen to them, learn how they became what they are, learn really what skills they have, and encourage them to be their best with their skills, as opposed to fearing them, right? Promote a culture of not limited worldview, but boundless resources and advancement possibilities and growth possibilities, and reward them for being open and straightforward and honest and having integrity and showing you how they do things. And if you don't comprehend something that somebody on your team is doing, listen to what they're doing, learn from what they're saying to you, right? Put in the time to do that, even if you're a quote-unquote busy person, right? If there's someone on your team who's delivering great results, pay attention, acknowledge that they're doing it, ask them how they do it, and really learn what it is that they're doing. Like, listen to them properly. Anyway, so those are just some of the things I wanted to mention, talking about marketing, leadership, and the differences between being a marketer at the bottom of the pile of marketers in your company or at the top of your pile or anywhere else in between. Always remember that, and as they say, you shouldn't step on the foot of somebody who's beneath you, because you never know when that person may be above you someday, right? So, don't step on someone's head on your way up, because you never know when you might need them on your way down. And this is true, and it's a generally better way to approach the world, especially when you're in marketing. And what they really care about is overall your performance, as well as your ability to work within a team and to be, in the company culture and all of that kind of thing. But most importantly, results. So yeah, it's a cold world for many marketers, but that's how it is. And that is kind of what makes us a cut above a lot of the rest. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of marketers, deserve the higher pay that they get compared to many other people. Salespeople to the exception, obviously, because salespeople can make way more if they're, fully driven to do commissions, sales, and they go gangbusters, and they often can bring in more money than anybody in the company in terms of, earning more money for themselves, because they bring in more money to the company as salespeople. But marketers are right up there with them, and there's a reason for that. It's because without any marketing and without any sales, there is no revenue in the company. Anyway, cheers.